Hey everybody, it's Michael. I review nootropics, and during this video today I'm going to share with you 3 nootropics to help you better handle anxiety. Here's a very neat graph in which they actually conducted a survey on 400 people to show the effectiveness of nootropics on anxiety specifically. At the very top we have nootropics which are going to help most, and then at the bottom we're going to have nootropics which will actually induce anxiety, because believe it or not, there are particular supplements which can make you more anxious, caffeine and some stimulants being some of them. And the very first nootropic is Ashwagandha. What is Ashwagandha? They actually consider it to be the king of herbs, probably one of the more effective herbs out there. It's grown in India, the Middle East, and some places in Africa. And there's quite a fair bit of research showing that it works well for reducing stress and reducing anxiety, but also enhancing strength and helping you as an athlete. Unlike the other 2 nootropics that I'm going to discuss is what is called an adaptogen, meaning it's a herb that helps you to better tolerate stress. And this is a really great study here where they took healthy patients and they gave them a dose of ashwagandha twice per day, and there was significant effects with reducing their stress levels. The way that I first knew that ashwagandha was working was that I found that I was worrying a whole lot less. Like my general concern for things, even if it was like a really important meeting that I had upcoming or perhaps an exam deadline, it was such that I was more so looking forward to it because I was very calm and in a good resourceful state. And I also surprisingly found that I was a lot more present. Usually at the end of the day, I would be very stressed out thinking about all the problems that could arise the following day. But no, I would be able to be very present, and that's probably one reason why ashwagandha is also suggested to aid sleep quality. And the way that I'm taking it is this form here. This is called KSM 66, which is a particular extract of ashwagandha. I like it because it's a little bit more energizing than the traditional ashwagandha root, which is somewhat relaxing and can arguably make you a bit unproductive. This has been really great to me, especially when combining it with a stimulant like caffeine. I find that I get the energy, and at the same time I'm able to be in this anxiety-free mode. I'm taking 300 milligrams twice per day. Note with ashwagandha, it has a very short half-life, so you are going to be better off taking it twice or even 3 times per day, in my opinion. It does take a bit of time to work. Don't expect a miracle the first time you take it. For me, I wasn't sure if it was really doing anything, but now I've learned that once I take it for 2 weeks, it gets nicely saturated into my system and I start to see all the benefits. You don't need to combine it with a meal unless you're having the ashwagandha root. When it comes to the extracts like KSM 66 or Sensoril or Shodan, I've done a comprehensive video that I will link right here. You're fine taking it simply with water. These side effects are such that you may feel a little bit too tired, a little bit lethargic to some extent. You may even find yourself somewhat demotivated. Otherwise, what's common is that ashwagandha does increase your thyroid levels. So if you're somebody with some sort of thyroid issue, then I would highly recommend that you speak to your doctor first before introducing this supplement to your daily regimen. And there is a fairly small population that do actually feel a little bit of irritability, like anger or frustration, but hasn't been too common from what I've noticed from speaking with people. Nootropic number 2 to help you better handle anxiety, and that's going to be lion's mane. I like this stuff so much that I have it from 3 different brands. This is from Real Mushrooms, this is from Nootropics Depot, and this is from Fresh Cap. All great companies. I'm experimenting with different types, and where you'll find it is in wild areas in North America, Europe, and Asia. How the way in which it handles anxiety is very different than ashwagandha, in that with ashwagandha, it will kind of calm you down. With lion's mane, you're still able to be relatively focused and get a lot of work done. I find that I'm generally just more curious about everything. I have this deep desire to learn. I find myself asking different questions to people that I would have never originally asked. It has this way of making problems smaller than they actually are. You'll overthink a lot less, and what so is then you're able to come at them from a more resourceful state and tackle them. You'll suddenly start to see the benefit and the brighter side of basically speaking to anyone, and that talking to people is always going to give you some sort of learning experience, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But lion's mane will get you in that state where you're willing to take action in the first place. It's really something which will excite you about getting out of your comfort zone to some extent. So particularly for like entrepreneurs, I can see this being really useful. Maybe if you're a student, not so helpful unless you're dealing with social anxiety and you have group projects. Lion's mane, it will make you to some extent feel smarter. There's this term neurogenesis, which is basically building new brain cells, and there are studies suggesting that lion's mane can do just that. And I definitely feel like it is true, very similar to exercising, how you feel sharper, you feel more inquisitive. That's lion's mane. And the way in which I'm taking it is I'm taking 300 milligrams 3 times per day. But if you do get it in capsule form, then you'll typically find it in 500 milligram capsules. You don't need to take it with a meal. Again, it's completely fine, especially if you're somebody who intermittent fasts. I even find that I notice lion's mane more when I'm fasting, surprisingly. And otherwise, you can take it before bed or you can take it in the morning. And the main side effect you should be aware of is vivid dreams. Some people don't like them as they have really bad nightmares, but for most people, they're good, enjoyable dreams. And another common side effect would also be demotivation, very similar to ashwagandha. It can be somewhat relaxing. It's relatively safe, this stuff, so is it okay to mix with other nootropics? In a lot of cases, yes. It just depends which one. Of course, be careful when it comes to it. People can have very high expectations thinking it's a limitless pill. Because it's not really stimulating, you may not notice it the first day you take it. Give it some time, and I would guess maybe there's 10 to 20% of people that just don't respond to it. The people who seem to respond to it most are people who've had episodes of depression in the past, or you're experiencing anxiety, or you're somebody who works long days like myself. And the third nootropic to help with anxiety would be L-Theanine, which is an amino acid, which is something you'll find exclusively in green tea. It's pretty hard to find otherwise. It is in some mushrooms, but unfortunately there isn't too much L-Theanine contained in green tea. You would have to have a few green teas to actually notice something. So the common practice is taking it in supplement form. These are 200 milligram capsules from Nootropics Depot. I also have it in the powder form because this is a nootropic where you will feel it the moment you take it. So you can kind of experiment with your dosing to some extent. I find that when I'm a little bit more anxious, I use it, and its main use is to relax you and give you this feeling of meditation in a pill. That's how it feels, while at the same time having results and having benefits with cognition. There's been a lot of studies done on L-Theanine showing that it can improve things like your memory, your decision making, and your thinking. Here's a cool study. After the administration of L-Theanine, there was results showing improvements with cognitive functions, verbal fluency, and executive function scores. There is something to be said about combining caffeine with L-Theanine, because caffeine is going to energize you and stimulate you, and L-Theanine at the same time is responsible for instantly relaxing you. So if you were to do that, then I would recommend you take it in a ratio of 1 caffeine to 2 L-Theanine. So 100 milligrams of caffeine along with 200 milligrams of L-Theanine is somewhat common. And again, looking at this graph over here, you can see that L-Theanine ranks pretty high when it comes to its effectiveness with anxiety. But on the contrary, look at caffeine. It's all the way down there as one of the more anxiety-inducing agents. So therefore, combining it together will help you to enjoy caffeine without experiencing some of that anxiety, jitteriness feeling, and feelings that you get from caffeine when you just pretty much don't feel like yourself. It's really nice coming across this nootropic because now I have something in my arsenal that I can take on the spot when I need it. Let's say if I'm stepping on stage or if I'm getting into an important meeting or Zoom call, one of these pills will be very effective. I don't personally believe that there are benefits long-term if you are to take it every single day. Hasn't been my experience. More so something you would take for the next kind of few hours and get the benefits from. Some people also take it pre-workout to kind of offset any overstimulation you feel if you are using caffeine pre-workout. So the way in which I'm taking L-Theanine is I'm taking 200 milligrams twice per day, once in the morning with, again, caffeine, my pre-workout, and then again in the afternoon I'm taking caffeine and L-Theanine together in that pill, like I mentioned. It being an amino acid, if you eat it with a meal, unfortunately it has to compete with other amino acids while you're digesting. So what else is fairly common is taking it before bed. It may actually help you with sleep. You'll find it in some sleep blends out there like Qualia Night. Some people I've found have reported that you can build up a tolerance to L-Theanine, so you probably want to not take it too frequently, but that hasn't been my experience. Honestly, I've used this nootropic for maybe 6 years and I haven't built any sort of tolerance to it. When I take 200 milligrams, it works just as well as it did the first time I took it. And that's my report on 3 nootropics to help with anxiety. If you got value from the video, please do subscribe and let me know in the comment section which is your personal favorite of the 3, and I'll look forward to seeing you all next time.